Welcome to Funnel This, the podcast where fintech marketers and founders learn what really works when it comes to brand building and driving demand.
It's hosted by me, Sally Baker. I'm the founder of fintech marketing agency Wondrous.
Follow the podcast on LinkedIn and Instagram.
Just search Funnel This.
Welcome back to the second part of my podcast episode with Katie Hayes, Head of Marketing at Ozone API. If you haven't already caught the first episode where Katie joined me to talk about rebranding for both established and challenger brands, do go back and check that out and I'll link that in the show notes. But in this part of the episode, Katie, you're going to talk to us about how to do global marketing on a tight budget. So I'm really excited to hear what insights you've got on this. But first of all, do give us a bit of an introduction to yourself.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here today. I am Katie Hayes. I head up marketing at a fintech called Ozone API. I have been in marketing for quite a few years across a number of industries, and one theme throughout is that marketing budgets are always getting reduced and cut and are put under scrutiny. So I have found various ways along the way to make the most of what you have so that you can grow a brand and a marketing team globally.
So thinking about B2B marketing, a lot of principles obviously will go across industries, but what would you say are the unique challenges that marketing a B2B fintech bring?
In today's world in B2B, we know, especially in our field, that 95% of your audience are not ready to convert or to make a purchase. So you really are having to nurture that audience for quite a while. It can be 12 to 18 months, sometimes even 24 months, and then trying to convert that other 5%. So it can be a challenge. It's definitely a marathon and not a sprint.
So not only is there a long sales cycle associated with B2B fintech, but actually, you know, a lot of people, of course, aren't even in market. So it's very important, isn't it, to stay front of mind?
Exactly. Building that brand awareness is essential, because when they are ready to look at types of solutions that you provide, you need to be front of mind.
So when you're having to do marketing and global marketing on a tight budget, where would you advise people to focus their efforts to get the biggest impact?
I would advise marketers to focus on their key channels. I would also suggest that they take a step back and evaluate, is your current marketing mix the right one? Is your channel mix working for you? I'm all for testing, but sometimes, especially when your budget is being reduced, it's better to follow what is working well and maximize what you're doing on that side.
So thinking about doing that global marketing and being present in different markets and different regions, how do you think about that process and make sure that your messaging is landing in each place?
At Ozone API, we work really closely with the general managers in each region because they know their audience, their region, the best. So it's very important that we have the global messaging down, but then we have the local flavor and the local nuance. And if needed, translation and for us in LATAM, for instance, we hosted a Spanish webinar the other day, and some assets we may need to do in Portuguese. In the Middle East, we may need to do them in Arabic. So that's also a very important consideration, especially on a budget. From a budget perspective, working across all these global regions, we have lent on partner marketing and collaborating with partners in the space, and that has really helped us to leverage and to tap into new audiences with a very limited budget.
Fab. And do you find that you're getting multiple requests from different regions, and how do you manage, who gets what and when?
Yes, especially with a very lean team. We have try to be as fair as possible. So always coming back to what are the overall objectives and goals for the business this year? How are we going to deliver that? And how are we going to enable our sales teams in each region? So for instance, we have focused on doing a webinar per region this year. It's a new format that we're testing, and we are working with the general managers to find the best time of the year to do that. And obviously, each one has a bit of a different nuance. So that's the approach we've taken. Sometimes we may have competing voices and it isn't necessarily who's shouting the loudest. We may then need to have a discussion with the CEO to say, okay, what is the priority? This is going to take a lot of resource. So for instance, we're doing our first demo video and doing that in-house. We've been working on it for many months, and to do the video edit, it's going to take a long time. Versus perhaps we're repurposing an industry tool. We have a builder calculator that we first launched in North America. We are now doing a version for the Middle East. So there it's a lot of repurposing assets, which will take a shorter amount of time. So it's about that balancing act. We have a very in-depth marketing roadmap that we work to, and we have monthly sessions where we need to sometimes reprioritize. Recently, we've had some budget cuts, I think, like most people, and there we've actually had to take a step back and say, okay, we're not going to be able to deliver everything. We already are a very high-performing team. Let's have a prioritization session around what do we need to complete and deliver by the end of the year, and what can we move to the backlog, or what can we reduce the scope of, or extend the timelines of when we will deliver that.
Okay. Very challenging times, and exactly the same for many people will be feeling the same squeezes, I think. You mentioned in there about repurposing content, and obviously that's a great way to make your content go further. Have you got any particular tips on how you'd go about doing that?
Think about the hero piece of content. So that could be a video. So let's use an example of a webinar. We would do pre-webinar marketing to try and get the sign-ups. We will then record the live webinar, do a post-event emailer. We would then use that video content and chop it up so that we have some teaser videos. We will then upload the full version to YouTube. If we're doing audio, we may upload that somewhere else. And we may transcribe that whole webinar, turn that into a blog article, see if we can then create some more social content and keep coming back to that hero piece of content. Also creating assets to make it very shareable for the speakers on the webinar. So for instance, if we're partnering with another organization, can we do speaker cards? Can we share recordings? Can we do follow-ups? I think something that we've found in our industry is we may release an essential guide on, say, 1033 Dodd-Frank's, which is legislation in the US, which now is completely null and void because we have to go back, and a lot has happened this year in that space and politically. So we need to go back and update and then relaunch it as a secondary campaign.
Yeah. And you mentioned obviously there a webinar and how you can use that and repurpose it in so many different ways, but really you can do that with almost any piece of content, can't you? And it's coming away from, I guess, we can only repurpose this to thinking, okay, with each piece of content, we can look at what's the key information that we've got, how can we turn that into social content, how could we perhaps make an infographic from it, and so on and so on. And of course, it gives you speaker topics, and the list really is endless when you think about it. And I guess perhaps can you come up with a template that you follow each time for each specific piece of content? There's just so many different things you can do to be more efficient, aren't there?
Completely. And it definitely keeps marketing teams busy. I think with the use of AI tools now as well, you can ask an AI to help you to come up with ideas of more, maybe something that's a bit different. So you're not constantly doing the same types of content. You've got to keep it fresh and exciting as well.
Have you got any tips on the point of AI for how teams could be utilising it to streamline processes?
Yes, I'm a big advocate for AI. I think that marketers who are not using AI are going to be in trouble. You need to be using it to stay relevant. And there's a huge amount that you can do. So especially in financial services, fintech, there are restrictions, I'd say. So you may be limited, say you are a Microsoft Teams organization, you may be limited to only using Copilot. We're a Google Workspace, so Gemini and Gemini for Workspace is available to us. We then have to go through our architecture board if we want to introduce any other tools. We've recently started using an AI tool called Dojo AI, which is a group of marketing AI agents. on one platform that really enables us to do a lot more with less. So the founding concept of that was, especially for what we are, small, lean startup teams who need to do so much on a global scale, but have very limited resources and limited budget. So that has been an absolute game changer. We started with a week-long trial. I got my team to experiment and use it as much as possible. And the learning from that is that we now have a very data-driven, unbiased new team member that is helping us do things a lot faster and really helping us to level up, actually, because it's a ring-fenced environment where we've plugged in our Google Analytics, our LinkedIn, so all the data is ours, and it's a confidential space to work with. Sensei is the character, I guess, that they have to make sure that we are using our own data to do data-driven marketing, and very affordably.
Yeah. So that Dojo AI is the name, isn't it? So that is very much about taking the data that you have available and doing what specifically with it.
So there are a variety of tools you can do. For instance, a brand health check. You can do things like competitor analysis. It has an SEO AI agent. So you can look at SEO, AI search, or AEO, GEO. There's so many acronyms this day. That has been really worthwhile. On a Monday, we are running a report to see what is trending in terms of keywords. So we can see we've recently launched a verification of payee campaign in Europe. And a couple of weeks ago, we saw that search for VOP, as we call it, had skyrocketed in Germany and Ireland. So we therefore created content specifically for that audience. So that's a great example of having more visibility of what is happening and having it fed to you really quickly. That works so well. We've also done things like reporting. Usually we would do an H1, H2 report, and it would take up to 3 weeks to pull all that data together, to consolidate it, to pull the insights out. And my marketing manager did it in 1 day.
Wow.
I know, blows your mind. It is quite incredible what you can do. And I think we're just scratching the surface of what you can do with AI.
Absolutely.
So I would encourage everyone to get stuck in,
get
experiment,
stuck in, get ahead.
See what you can do, because otherwise, unfortunately, you're going to be left behind and are going to become irrelevant.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that one of the things that people will be desperate to find out is what have you done that's worked really, really well. So could you give us an example of a successful campaign that was managed on a tight budget and what you did and how it worked?
That's a great question. I'm going to take a bit of a tangent on this one. I think that we underestimate the power of our employee advocates. So that's something that we've been focusing on a lot this year, especially working with our one co-founder, Hugh Davis, around what content can he create and put out there as a thought leader in the space.
Yes.
And what was really interesting is a couple of weeks ago, he put out a LinkedIn post, quite lengthy, with commentary around what JP Morgan is doing with data in the States. And it is a very mini example of something going viral, but it really went viral. We got podcast interviews from 11FS, from an advisory consultancy in the US, which is a new market, and we are a tiny speck in the ocean there. So that is a great example of how purely working with the resources that we have available to us with our team, enabling our team to get your voice heard and to have an opportunity, because that cost us £0 and great visibility. And he's actually since done a follow-up from that. If I take a step back and think about what else has worked well on a budget, I would definitely say your content marketing. We spoke a lot about how you can chop it up, remix it, repurpose it. That is your bread and butter. Coming back to leveraging your thought leaders and your thought leadership in your space, especially in fintech, in B2B, that is what puts you in great stead, because at the end of the day, customers need to trust your brand, they need to trust your products, they need to trust where they're spending their money.
Yeah, and trust the people that they're buying from, because, of course, ultimately they're still buying from people at the end of the day. So as you've mentioned, getting your team on board and getting them to have their voice heard, ultimately it's a numbers game, isn't it? So the more people that you've got out there spreading the word about the great work that you're doing, then the more opportunity will come from the back of it.
Yes, for sure. In the B2B space, in fintech and in open banking, the event calendar is really busy and it is hugely expensive to get involved. If I think about some of the huge events, that's more than my annual budget.
Yeah.
So you've got to find strategic ways to have a brand presence there. So what our approach has been is really ensuring that we have visibility there. And that may just be having your sales team on the ground.
Yeah.
It may be looking at some periphery events that are happening. Can you be on the ground and attending those events, networking, posting on LinkedIn? Are there any closed roundtables that are happening? That's been a format that has worked really well for us, and another opportunity to leverage our thought leadership in the space.
And yeah, as you say, some of these big events now, the fringe events are almost taking over, really, aren't they? So that is a great and lower cost opportunity to be able to get your brand out there and get to speak to the people that are really important to you.
Yes, for sure. And where possible, if there are content calls, apply for someone in your organization to speak. Are they specialists on the product side, the technical side, the commercial side? It's not always possible because it is pay to play a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But with building those relationships with the event organizers, with the heads of content, there are ways to have your voice heard.
So thinking about challenger brands and kind of smaller startups, how do you sort of build that presence and maybe punch above your weight? What are the important things for you on that?
I'd encourage marketers, and this is something that we constantly strive to do, maybe we don't do it too well yet because we get a bit bogged down with it every day, is to take risks, to be bold, to think about, is there an opportunity? We don't have much budget here, but we're going to be, say, at this event, or we're going to be here. Can we do something like guerrilla marketing? Or can we infuse our brand personality a bit more and bring in our sense of humor in a social post, for instance? So taking a step back and challenging yourself to be bold is something that pops into my mind immediately.
And you've mentioned previously about if you're on a small budget, obviously you've got to do what you know works. Do you think there's a place then for experimentation? And if so, how big is that place?
So definitely make sure that you're measuring the impact that your different channels and campaigns are doing. Whatever's working well for you, invest more into that where possible, because you have that proof point, you have the return on investment. So definitely do that. But having said that, I think it's always good to have room for experimentation. And if you are able to have a small portion of your budget to test a new channel. So for instance, if you haven't done any Google ads, but you think it would be really worthwhile, start small and test that. And if it works, build upon that. If it doesn't, press pause and go back to what is working.
Yeah, I suppose ultimately, if you've got a hunch that something might work, you've also got to give it that time to prove itself, haven't you? And, back your hunches.
Definitely.
So finally on that point then, CMOs, is there anything that you would advise them to either start doing or stop doing if they want to do more with less?
If you're measuring your marketing effectively, you will have a good idea of what's working well and what isn't really working well. Don't be afraid to take a step back and to press pause on something that isn't performing as well as you hoped. Maybe be a bit of experimental and try something else. And for the channels that are really performing well, shout about it. Speak your truth around that and make sure that you are investing more budget into that channel so that you can continue to grow.
Fabulous. Thank you. That's been absolutely wonderful. But Katie, I cannot let you go before I ask the mainstay question of the fun of this podcast. I would love to know from you, if you were starting a marketing function today from scratch, would you have 3 founding principles that you could share with me?
Great question. Firstly, I would listen and really make sure that you understand the client, the product fit, and the foundations of the business. If you don't have those in your mind and have a very clear picture, it's very difficult to build marketing around that. Once you have that and you start to build the foundations of a marketing department, make sure that you're building scalable processes, scalable channels. I think having that approach will really enable you to grow consistently over time.
And number 3.
Measure what matters. We know that measurement is essential. You will not be able to unlock more budget if you're not proving that what you're doing is working. So make sure that you have the right metrics, that you're measuring consistently, and that you're comparing previous periods to the existing period, and making sure that you're amplifying that.
Fabulous. And would you be able to sort of give us maybe 3 metrics that you think are super important and ones that you should be looking at?
Oh, that's a good question. It would depend on the channels. I'm going to go with what is top of mind. So I would definitely look at website, new users, a whole host of metrics there around what you've seen on your website. I'm not really into vanity metrics around impressions or followers. It's more the engagement of what's happening. And with that, if you think about digital PR, what is the share of voice? Sometimes it's really difficult to measure, but if you have the ability to measure, how are you increasing your share of voice in your priority regions?
Fabulous. That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you again for joining me today. And as I mentioned, do go back and listen to part 1 of this episode too.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Funnel This. Follow the podcast so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed it, do share with someone else who might find it useful too. See you next time.